The whole point of a visual process flow is to make navigating through the application easier. And this is accomplished in several ways. First, depending on how the visual process flow is designed, you can click on specific graphical elements to navigate to things like data entry windows, inquiry screens, reports, help topics, websites or external applications, and you can even use graphical elements to navigate to other process flows. But of course, if your visual process flow had a process menu, you could use that to navigate between process flows as well. You can also use icons to show or hide things like submenus that can also launch functions, or tips to help you use the visual process flow, and buttons for other functions and tasks. Now let's take a look at navigating through a visual process flow. So looking at the My Sales process flow here, I have the ability to connect into customer records and go through the process for sales from quotes all the way out to invoices and cash receipts. To identify whether a particular object on the visual process flow is a link, you can simply hover over it and you can see that your pointer changes to obviously a hand to indicate that you can link to it. In this case, the customer's link, if I click on it, it will automatically open my customer record. So again, I didn't need to navigate through the menu to do this. I could just click one button and it takes me into the customer record. If I want to enter an invoice, I can go to the invoice object, click on it, and it opens up the invoice object. And the important thing to note is that it opened up the invoice object, but it didn't have a pop-up for the entry transaction. That can be designed in the process flow so that based on the user that is using that visual process flow, it will have their specific entry transaction loaded for this particular screen. There is also functionality to move between process flows. One of the easiest ways to do it is to build a process menu. So I have the ability to navigate by clicking on the process menu itself. On the process menu, I also have the ability to show or hide these individual groups. So I can go between process menus here. And by the way, you do have the ability to move the process menu around if it's in the way of your process flow. And in this particular case, to get back to my original process flow, I would need to hit the refresh button. And it refreshes my process flow and puts the original one back on. One of the other ways that you can navigate between process flows is to actually have an object linked to another process flow. So for example, my CRM thumbtack here has a link to the customer management visual process flow. And we've embedded in this visual process flow an X that allows me to close that visual process flow out and bring me back to my original.